We don't have any public hearing tonight. We do not have any minutes to approve, but they're stacking up. Upcoming select board meetings and workshops, you have them on your agenda. I am going to announce, though, that the budget workshop for tomorrow evening has been postponed. We pushed it forward again because of weather, and that will happen a week from tomorrow, next Tuesday, and I don't have the 20th, okay, thank you. And so we will hopefully get things going as far as the budget process is concerned. The weather has been a little bit of a bugaboo there. We will have a budget session this Wednesday, 2 days from now, starting at 5:30. We will be interrupting that one for a brief time at about 7 o'clock or so for the select board to actually have a meeting. We have to vote to set the public hearing for things because of timing issues, so that'll be a one-agenda meeting, which won't last very long. And Owen, I guess you'll be out of town for that one, so hopefully the other two of us are here and all agree on that. So everything is on the agenda as far as those meetings are concerned. Town office tomorrow, Rick, is that still going to happen, the training tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so that means the town office will be opening 1 hour late tomorrow at 9 a.m. For some employee training to happen in the 8 to 9 hour. Nomination papers are available at the town office for the following positions: 2 select board members for a 3-year term. The seat's currently held by myself and Mr. Casas. There is 1 select board member for a 1-year term to fill the remainder of the term, which was vacated by the resignation of Tom Gray. 1 director for SAD 28 to serve concurrently on the CSD board for a 3-year term. That's currently held by Marcia Dietrich. And there's another SAD 28 and CSD term. It's a 1-year term. It's completing the term of a resignation. That term is currently held, or that seat is currently held by Carol Gartley, who this board appointed to fill the seat until the election. So that seat is available as well. 2 library committee members for 3-year terms each. Those held by Ms. Hazelton and Ms. Lichty. And 3 budget committee members, each for a 3-year term. Seats currently held by Ms. Saltonstall, Ms. Shaw, and Mr. Johnson. Deadline for all nomination papers, 5 p.m. on Friday, April 13th. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, the town clerk can help you out, or members of her office can help you out. And we encourage folks to get involved in your town government and take out papers and run for these positions. Okay, do we have any agenda changes this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Public comment should be directed at issues not under discussion on this evening's agenda. Comment from the public will be welcome prior to each agenda item. Further comment will be granted only by permission from the board. All public comment should be brief and to the point. Do we have anybody who wishes to make public comment this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to the town manager's report. Put the phone away.
Yeah, I was just checking a date.
Playing a game.
Yeah. I don't even know a game to play on that thing. A couple of things. We have a lot of uniforms in the audience tonight for 2 recognitions that are going on. One is on January 17th. All of the Rockport and Camden police officers and our fire chiefs and harbor master and other first responders all attended a training on the administration of Narcan in overdose cases. It was I went down for part of it, part of the training, and I was impressed with how committed and how much the officers were asking really good questions and really seemed to be paying attention to the Narcan training that was being done. It was a 3-hour training that was really interesting. And fortunately or unfortunately, we had the need to use it, and Officer Chris Taylor and Jason Peasley responded to a call on February 22nd, 2018, and performed, were able to administer the Narcan because they discovered a male on the floor, obvious overdose. So, Chief, you want to come up and read the commendation into the record for them? And both of them are here. I wanted to recognize, Chris had just How long had you been out of the academy, Chris?
I graduated the academy on December 15th, I believe, somewhere in there.
15th?
You want them to come up? Come on up, both of you. Don't get too close, I don't want you to make me look short. Come on up. Well, we've invited you both here tonight to give you a letter of accommodation for your actions on February 22nd, 2018 of this year. On February 22nd, 2018, Officer Christopher Taylor and Fire Chief Jason Peasley, while performing duties with the Rockport Police and Fire Departments, were dispatched to a reported drug overdose in the town of Rockport. As the initial first responders to the scene, Officer Taylor and Chief Peasley swiftly reviewed the situation and established scene safety, after which they discovered a male subject had collapsed on the bedroom floor after injecting some type of opiate-based drug. A quick assessment of the situation led both Officer Taylor and Chief Peasley to believe that the male subject was suffering the effects of an opiate drug overdose and was in critical condition. Officer Taylor and Chief Peasley knew that through recent departmental education on the use of Narcan, if the man was to have any opportunity to survive, they would have to administer the department-issued dose of Narcan. Officer Taylor administered the initial dose of Narcan as rescue was arriving on scene. Upon arrival, rescue assumed care of the man, and once he gained full consciousness, he was advised that he had overdosed, and through the use of Narcan, had in all probability, his life had been saved. Officer Taylor and Chief Peasley, you are both hereby commended for your clear thinking, decisive, and instantaneous measures to perform in the performance of your police and fire duties. These actions, coupled with the merited professional training received, positively resulted in the proper use of Narcan for an overdose of an opiate-type drug, ultimately saving a person's life. Also noted in your investigation is the discovery and confiscation of further drugs and drug paraphernalia at the scene, absolutely resulting in the removal of these items from further use. Your actions on February 22nd, 2018 undeniably bring credit to you, the police and fire departments, and the town of Rockport.
We have copies of the letter of accommodation for both of you. Very much, thank you.
Congratulations.
Good work, Jason.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Bring credit to the
Nicely
town.
done.
Good to know you're out
Oh,
there.
good job.
Thank you, sir. Nicely
I
done,
hope that's
guys.
the last time you guys have to do it.
I would hope so too, but unfortunately, it's,
Maybe not those two.
May not be the case, yeah.
but, I mean, it's quite something that we had the training and that these guys were available to be able to do that and kick the training into gear so quickly.
It's unfortunate. I think you had.
It's actually the second time within just a little over a month
Yeah.
from the training that we.
You had one in Camden as
We did,
well,
yeah.
correct?
2 days after issuing the Narcan to the officers in Camden, we had one. Sergeant Brown was here with us tonight, was on that call as well.
You were on that other one in Camden? Yes, sir. Well, it's pretty amazing, and I think for me, one of the things that, the departments training together and working so closely together, I think the support in each department is excellent. So they don't feel like they're doing this all alone. So thank you very much. So the next item is we're here to recognize a brand-new patrol officer. Jacob Powers started with us on January 18th, 2017 as a part-time officer. He's completed his field training faster than we had hoped and has been working on a set shift for several weeks now. He's transferred to full-time employment status as of the 28th of this month. He completed his Maine Criminal Justice Academy. He spent time as an officer with the Maine State Police and Waldo County Sheriff's Officer. He's a graduate of Camden Hills Regional High School and the University of Maine. He has a bachelor's degree in sociology. He lives in Appleton. His mother and father, Tracy Powers and Stephen Powers, are here to pin his badge on him. There's a few little-known facts that we thought we would share. Jacob was a two-time state champion wrestler. He has the academy, he holds the academy record for push-ups. I can't believe this.
What was it?
108 push-ups in 1 minute? That's just,
Lucky if I could do 108 in a day.
I know, over a week, period of a week. And also, now holds the record for the number of sit-ups in a minute at 71 sit-ups. That's pretty amazing. I mean, so if you want to come on up and do the ceremony, I think I'm really pleased that the officers we have, I think we've done a great job.
We need a volunteer to take pictures. Jason Peasley. It makes it official when mom pins your badge on.
Yeah, right.
And when I was scouting Jacobs, I was trying to get in touch with him, and if you want to get in touch with somebody, you go find her mom. Within an hour of talking to Tracy, Jacob called me up and we made the deal.
Thank you for letting the town have your son.
I can't believe you did that, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy.
So, to continue, we've had a couple of cancellations in the budget schedule, but we've been working really hard on the budget over the past month, Megan and I. Megan's sick of seeing me in her office. But we've done a lot of work on the budget. We continue to do a lot of work on the budget, frankly. She and I would like to be done with this part and moved on to the next phase, but with the cancellation tomorrow, it extends it out a little further, so. The library continues to be a priority for me. I spend a lot of time on it, given such a tight timeframe of the library process. I've been working really hard on this. We've also almost gotten to the bond language to the point where I'll send it out to you, Ken, I think in the next day or so. We had planned on a meeting with DOT for March 8th, but I believe that was canceled because of the last storm, and I believe I just rescheduled that for March 20th. I think it's next Tuesday. Public Works Department, Public Works has been very busy with the storms, and then keeping up with repairs and maintenance in between. On top of that, they've had a lot of illness running through the department. Mike has been pretty sick with pneumonia, and then some of the other guys have been down, but somehow they all managed to get in and do their plow routes. We had purchased some more sand and salt before the last storm, and it's a good thing we did that because after this storm, we'll probably use that all up.
Can I ask just a super quick question?
Mm-hmm.
If we muzzled that structure that we currently house the sand and salt in, if we filled that completely and entirely, would we have enough for an entire winter? Or is this kind of normal? Normally, we get another shipment in partway through.
Yeah, we've had it pretty full in the
'Cause
past, and
I went and looked, and it was full.
yeah.
Earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, we could get more in. We thought we had enough, but,
Yeah.
A lot of the storms have used up, it doesn't seem like we've had a lot of, I just want to make sure my.
Colder
folder's-
weather dictates sand over salt.
Yeah,
Well, the problem is that little storms, you still use the sand and the salt in little
Right.
storms, the 1 inch or the freezing rain and sleet, you still use it for those, and
yeah.
we've had a fair number of those.
We've been working on the ambulance contract. The 4 town managers have been working. We've met with Rick Petrie of Atlantic Partners, and He's given us some advice on, and will continue to work with us on performance measurements, and we're trying to work that into the contract now. Right now, the town of Camden has volunteered to have their lawyer start the process of developing the contract. And then it'll come back to us to pass off to our different lawyers. But they're working on that performance measurement, performance-based measurement, which in the initial meeting, you were at that meeting, both of you were at that meeting. Northeast Ambulance was open to that type of performance measurements that will,
I think it was a way at that meeting to get past, and I can talk about it more in liaison reports, to get past the impasse among the different towns as to the level of service that they wanted. Everybody was more comfortable with going with the performance-based contract.
Quick timeline question, the kind of contract ironing out that the managers are doing, are we as a board gonna be able to review that
Oh, yeah.
before the ambulance committee
Oh, yeah.
approves it? Okay.
Yep.
Well, the ambulance committee will look at it, and then it's, the final say is with the boards.
Boards, right, 4 towns.
It's, the ambulance committee will have it first probably, and then the board, then after they'll pass it off, and then the boards can make whatever changes in it they want, or make a recommendation one way or the other.
The fire department has been busy with calls. They had a structure fire today and that they responded to in Rockland.
I heard you guys driving by, it sounded like you were going to Rockland.
Yeah. They continue to have an excellent turnout. They spend a lot of time in training, and they commit countless hours of training and preparation and work to making sure our fire department is able to respond the best that it can. And so, I mean, I certainly recognize that, because you see them over there all the time. The position for the Planning and Community Development Director has been advertised, and we're starting to get applications and resumes in now. I've pretty much set up a team. If a member of the board wanted to sit on that team, the interview team, let me know, and we'll get you on that.
I can do that if you, I didn't respond to your email because I was responding to too many other emails. So,
Okay.
yeah, I can do that.
So I've,
Unless somebody else would
No,
know.
I'm good with that.
Scott is gonna sit on it. Also Audra from Camden is gonna sit, the planning board chair, and the new planning board chair will also sit on that team.
Wait a second. The Camden Town Manager is gonna sit on our hiring committee for a Rockport employee?
Yeah, I was gonna
Is that
sit on.
normal?
Sometime.
Yeah.
We did it actually when we
I
were
was-
looking for a fire chief, we had the Rockland fire chief
Yep.
up here to help with that.
Cool. I mean, I think extremely highly of Audra, I just had never really heard of.
I was gonna sit on theirs for their economic development person, but it was, the night was changed when we had a meeting.
It's good that you're bringing that.
Yeah. And, she, actually, she has her degree in planning and community development. She's got her master's in.
Her previous life would
Yeah.
be good for us to,
Yeah. I mean, she's got a master's in planning and community development, so she's a natural.
Awesome.
The assessing, we got some good news there. Our cost for the assessing software has dropped from $15,000 to $5,000 because of the work that Kerry has been doing, trying to get that, to help them get all the bugs worked out, because we were like we were a beta test site. And so, in recognition of all of the work that he's done, they've knocked the price down another $10,000, so. And was it supposed to be 15 to start, or was it at 20,000?
22, I think, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Didn't he ask for 22?
No, but that was the
That was
imaging.
different, that was.
No, that was the imaging, yeah.
And actually-
20,000 to buy the software.
And actually, that was gonna be just a brief question, is at some point, are we gonna get an update on some of the imaging questions that we had at
It's
the other
gonna,
meeting?
it's in the budget for this year, and.
Okay, so that's
we-
the plan,
we
is
put
to
it-
do it.
Just put it in the
Okay.
budget.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's,
The foreclosure notices have all gone out. Linda and Diane have been uncharacteristically, we're working at both of them, I've not seen GA clients start to build up this early. We've had a busy last month. Normally, it's at the end of March and the beginning of April, it starts to build up. That's when everybody gets shut-off notices and all those things. But they've been busy, pretty much steady since the beginning of February.
What do you mean shut-off notices?
Electric shut-off notices, because they can't shut off power in this time of the year.
So you've been having a lot of people coming into the town office saying that they're getting disconnect notices?
No,
No.
just, that's usually the time when we get a lot of people coming in. But this year, it's starting earlier, not based on shut-off notices.
It's rental notice.
Okay.
They need
Because we've been
assistance
having an
with
issue
rent.
with CMP and some of the billing
Yeah,
things,
no,
and
it's
I
not.
didn't.
No.
It's not related to that this year.
I did think it would be odd if they're coming in to
It's
complain to you about the
homeless
CMP
people
bill.
that need assistance, have
Yeah.
no place to go.
And some difficult cases. The harbor, Abby's been trying to use up some of her vacation time before we get into the busy season. She did a 3-day harbor master training, and hopefully, well, we were thinking the docks were gonna be going in a couple, 3 weeks. We'll see.
Push the snow off them and put them in.
Yeah. And I haven't had a chance to move forward on the Rockland Street sale language, and the Heron lease, and also finally,
When are those due?
Yeah,
they're due, I can't remember. I think this summer, this spring,
I think
summer.
so, I
yeah.
think, yeah.
so do you have a time that, like for the sale of the house, I mean, do you anticipate, because I think the people would like to move on that.
I just haven't had a chance.
I mean, do you have a crystal ball guess as to when you might be able to get it done?
Once we get through budget stuff, I'll be able to get on it, but I just don't have time between budget and library stuff.
What are you doing?
And then Terry, the Opera House manager, has submitted a letter of resignation. She's gonna hopefully stay on until we can find somebody. But her side business, her real passion is photography and media stuff, and so that's taking off and taking more of her time. So she's gonna pursue that, and we'll be looking for a new Opera House manager.
Can I jump back up? How the discussions that go on in our budget meetings affect the planning and community development director position? That's for this coming year, and if there was some question about whether we should fund that or not, that would be for June of 18 to
July.
July of
Yeah,
18
July.
to June
Yep.
of next year.
So given the course that you're headed, what would be your potential hiring date?
We'll be through the budget process before I'm hiring somebody.
All right.
Yeah.
But will you be, I guess the question is, will we need to fund a full year's salary, or 11 months, or 10 months?
Or the salary at all?
Or the salary at all, yeah.
If we don't fund the salary at all, there are some duties that are gonna have to be picked up by somebody else, planning board support, ZBA support, and things like that.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable funding that, and if we don't use it, it can go into the UFB.
I mean,
No,
some,
we can have this discussion at budget time then.
But
so I-
there's enough time, because
Yeah.
there's not, actually, having a little bit of breathing room in the budget right now, in that planning budget, the fact that we don't have, we're not paying that salary out is giving us a little bit of a little bit of cushion in that budget. So I was not in a huge hurry to get that filled, like the day after tomorrow. I was thinking it probably would be, end of April, beginning of May, but by that time, you'll have already approved all your budgets. and-
Right, okay, great.
okay, any further questions for the manager? If not, on to new business. We have a gift to the town, a payment in lieu of taxes in the amount of $700 from the Coastal Mountain Land Trust. We have a letter from them providing the donation and a receipt in the amount of $700.
You should have a letter in your sign file from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a motion.
So we just
to
need a
accept
motion
that.
to accept that, and
I move to accept the payment in lieu of taxes of $700 from Coastal Mountain Land Trust and send a letter of appreciation.
Second.
okay, any discussion? As I like to say always with this payment in lieu of taxes, it's nice when an organization that is not required to pay taxes realizes that the town does provide them some service, and they'd like to contribute, so.
Well, I think the
appreciate it
effort's
very
paid
much.
off. I mean, what
Yeah.
we decided has paid off.
Yep. And their letter put it very nicely, actually, how much they appreciate the quality of the service performed by the town, so very much appreciated. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 4-0 unanimous vote. No committee resignations, no committee applications tonight. We do have a petition that we've received from residents of Rockport. Are any of those signatories here tonight? I had sent an email to Maynard Tolman letting him know that it was on the agenda, and if anybody wanted to come and comment on it, they'd be more than welcome to do so. The petition doesn't have enough signatures to go onto the ballot, although Linda, you said you certified 17 signatures on here.
70.
Oh, 75, okay. Okay,
And how much does it, how many does it need?
200 and something, isn't it?
Yeah, and the petition actually didn't ask us to put anything on the warrant. It wasn't asking us to put on the warrant. But that being said, the gist of the petition was that the signatories wanted to make sure that if we did any consolidation of services with surrounding towns, that we present that to the town for a vote. That was their main message, I believe. If anybody else read that differently, then feel free to speak. And I think that that's not unreasonable. Rick and I spoke about it, and the interlocal agreements that we have in force, which are several, Midcoast Solid Waste, Mutual Aid for Fire, sewer, wastewater, we have interlocal agreements. We have an interlocal agreement with the police chief, and we have one with assessing, and all those have been entered into by vote of the board. The manager hasn't executed those on his own, it's always been by vote of the board. But as we talked about it, if we were ever looking at merging a full department, that Rick and I felt, and I would look to the rest of the board for their opinions too, that would be something that would be appropriate to put that to a town vote.
I would agree with that. I mean, definitely defining it, as you're saying, when it's a merger of an entire department
Right.
officially, I have no problem sending it to the voters.
Yeah.
The only thing that, and I also think that maybe not necessarily for public hearings on sharing an assessor, but I'm not opposed to being more robust in our presentation of what we're talking about and what these agreements look like at all. I was just, when it was calling for doing things at the annual town meeting, it just seemed difficult to try to plan all of our potential interlocal agreements to go on town meeting day.
Yeah,
Because
I
they
mean,
sometimes ebb and flow. You're halfway through the year and you realize this isn't working so well and we need to share a resource real quick.
we could call a special town meeting if we needed to. If
we needed to.
If we needed to have that kind of a vote. And I do think that was the one issue that I had with the petition, was the 4 public hearings is a little bit onerous, I think, and I don't know that it's absolutely necessary. I'm perfectly happy to have a public hearing, or even 2, to let people come and speak their piece on it. But 4 seems a little, we don't do that for anything. And I think by the time we got there, so, you know.
Do we have any sort of policy that guides and dictates our interlocal agreements? And typically, I don't want to policy us to death, but where it's been raised by the citizenry, should we
There's
define?
state statute
We follow state
applies.
statute.
Yeah.
Okay.
State statute dictates how they're done, and in each of those all of those interlocal
Yeah.
agreements, they're done according to state statute and by our lawyer.
And I think, as Rick mentioned to me, the state actually encourages it as a way to keep the cost down and property taxes down, if there's any way that we can share services that make sense. And
But it's clear to me that, I mean, even if the law doesn't require it, but if you're gonna merge 2 departments into one, you're basically dissolving the department.
Yeah.
And merging it with another and creating this other new entity. And that that definitely in my mind, definitely needs the vote of the,
That would be a much more significant step than we've done to this point, where we're sharing a couple of department heads at this point, which, in my opinion, has worked out fairly well in both cases and saved us some money. Anybody else have any further comment on the petition?
I would just love some folks to come in and talk with us about it.
Well, I mean, my main message to the folks who put the petition in is that we heard you. It was a nice effort. I'm actually glad that 75 people thought enough about the situation to sign the petition and send it in and put it in front of us. And I think that much of what they have proposed makes some sense. Okay. Committee presentation from the cemetery committee. Are you here by yourself tonight, Linda?
I am, and it's not, it isn't really a presentation, it's just asking to expand the moratorium at Seaview Cemetery. The committee had a meeting, and they are recommending that the select board approve a moratorium for 3 more years, which would go until January 23rd, 2018. And we did have a meeting.
2021.
I mean,
yeah.
21.
Yeah.
And we did have a meeting, and we are working on a plan, and Ken has been at those meetings. And we're working on asking for $25,000 for 3 years to put in a reserve for columbarium, which is what we're hoping to have at some point at Seaview Cemetery. We are having a meeting this Friday in regard to that as well, and we had planned on having a site walk to see where we would like to have it
Ski where that
placed.
goes, yeah.
But I don't think that's gonna happen,
not for a while.
but that's what we're doing at the moment.
Someplace close to the road, so you don't have, they can do it in a year-round fashion without the gate being open.
Yes.
And I'll add that the committee's discussions, and one of the reasons that I asked Linda to come and report tonight is with the request for the 3-year extension, I thought that the board really would like to have a plan as to what's gonna happen, that we don't just keep extending on and forever. And the committee has done a lot of work in getting some estimates on columbariums and looking at the costs and looking at other cemeteries and what their fees are for that, and it makes sense. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money kind of right up front, but eventually, the sale of the niches in the columbarium for cremains will pay for it. It may take many years, but basically it allows us to use the space in the cemetery much more efficiently, and a lot more people can be served in a much smaller area, because there is the demand. And the moratorium, by the way, would be for non-residents in the cemetery. So if we get the columbarium in there, then we would again be able to accept non-residents who want to have their remains there.
Quick question. How many people have you had to turn away since we did the first
I
moratorium?
have not turned anyone away. I have one person waiting for an answer. I do have a Rockport resident, which I would contact tomorrow morning, or as soon as I can, probably after the cemetery meeting. I need to talk to the board, and I have talked to Rick. I have not talked to David Farley, but we do have a resident who lives in town who pays substantial taxes. He's lived here for over 15 years, who wants to buy a cremation lot.
He's not a resident,
He's,
is he?
he's a summer resident,
Summer.
but he's paid real estate taxes and a lot of taxes.
That's part of
And-
the discussion we had last time about the non-resident taxpayers.
Right. And we do have in our rules and regulations that the sexton, assistant sexton, and myself can make that ruling and sell them a cemetery lot, which Rick and I both don't have a problem with.
So there's not
No,
a huge amount of folks.
no.
But, and the other interesting thing that comes up in the cemetery committee discussions is the fact we have Julie Clement, is that her last name?
Yes, Clement.
Who serves on the committee as a Rockport resident, but also runs the funeral home in Camden, so she has her finger on how this industry is going, and she says that, I think it's 80% of people now are choosing to be cremated, and so that's where the future demand is. And it makes a lot of sense, it saves a lot of room, and I think that the Seaview Cemetery in particular
people.
has an opportunity to have a really nice area where you can see the water and, you know, a lot of people could use that area and things like that, so, that's the plan, and that's the reason for the request for the moratorium.
On a side note, I want the exact opposite. I actually want to be encased in concrete when I'm done. My wife knows about it.
Feet only?
You just
Whole-
poured
the whole
concrete,
body.
just solid concrete?
Before or after?
Hopefully after. So I would be a bit uncomfortable with 3 years, but for the fact that the remaining board members and whatever the board is could lift the moratorium at any appropriate time in those 3 years if we saw fit. So, do you want me to do a motion? I
Feel
move
free.
to extend the moratorium that limits the sale of cemetery lots to Rockport residents for the period of 3 years to end on January 23rd, 2021.
The only thing we need to add to that motion is Seaview Cemetery, because there's no limitation on the other,
Cemetery lots in Seaview Cemetery only.
because the other cemeteries in town don't do
Second.
that.
Discussion.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a problem with the grammatical structure of the motion. This could be construed as a moratorium that limits the sale of cemetery lots to the Rockport residents.
When I was reading it, because
No, it shouldn't
I
say
had
that.
read
No,
over
yeah.
some of the stuff, but I hadn't read over the proposed motion. It did sound funny reading
Yeah,
it.
you're right.
There's kind of a, there's probably
So,
a better way to phrase
Do you
it.
want to withdraw your
To non-residents.
second?
Yeah.
Well, but
I
then,
withdraw my
but then
motion.
it says the limits to non-residents, so,
We've withdrawn the second in the motion.
yeah.
If you
So
want to,
the moratorium affects
Right.
non-residents, so.
I move
It
to
should be Rockport residents, you know, only or something, but
I move to extend the moratorium for Seaview Cemetery and limit the sale of plots to Rockport residents only for a period of 3 years to end on January 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Sound better?
Yep.
second.
Work? Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion now? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay,
Did you get that, Linda?
set with that.
I did.
limits the sale.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is to consider developing an ordinance to prohibit selling takeout food in styrofoam containers in Rockport. And the Ordinance Review Committee a few weeks ago heard a presentation from a high school senior at Camden Hills. It was excellent, and so I decided that the select board should hear it as well. And it's Fran, right?
Yes, I'm Fran Woodworth, and I'm a senior at Camden Hills. And I'm here to ask you to consider putting a ban on the use of expanded polystyrene foam for all takeout food and beverage on the June town warrant. So I'm completing the global competency endorsement, where I need to pick an issue of global significance and research it and take action around it. And environmental issues are the most compelling to me, and I plan to pursue environmental policy or law in college. So the issue that I identified and am passionate about here in Rockport is styrofoam litter. And I've worked on roadside cleanups with Keep Rockport Beautiful and found that people toss styrofoam cups and containers out of their cars all the time, and they're very hard to pick up. And we know that styrofoam never biodegrades. It just breaks into smaller and smaller pieces. And it's 95% air, so it blows around easily, and it gets into waterways and is ingested by animals, and also acts like a pollutant sponge, so it picks up contaminants and concentrates them before being ingested by animals. So when styrofoam is properly disposed of in the household trash, it's incinerated with the rest of our trash. And starting in April, our trash is going to be taken to Eco Maine, and that facility does an amazing job of minimizing the environmental impact of what they incinerate. So styrofoam is really environmentally detrimental when it's not disposed of properly, and that happens when people consume food and drinks in their car with styrofoam packaging and toss it out the window when they're done. So banning these styrofoam takeout containers specifically would help keep that styrofoam out of the environment and would prevent the poisoning and starvation of wildlife. So there's a huge environmental benefit to making a change as a town in what we package our food with. And that's why both Rockland and Camden are pursuing similar styrofoam bans, and why the Rockport Conservation Commission voted unanimously to support my effort to minimize styrofoam litter with this expanded polystyrene foam ban for the town of Rockport. So in my research, I talked to the majority of places in Rockport that sell food to see if they use styrofoam or not, and most places either don't use it or have just 1 or 2 cup sizes that are styrofoam. So the place that would probably be most impacted by this ban would be Dunkin' Donuts, because they use so much styrofoam for their coffee cups, but they've already made a company-wide pledge to go styrofoam free by 2020, and that's starting right now in the spring of 2018. Many other municipalities in Maine have already adopted styrofoam bans, and from my research, I have been able to tell that they've gone really well. I talked to some city managers and sustainability coordinators and managers of places that sell food in these municipalities, and what I learned is that most food places in general do pay a little bit more for packaging, but not enough to need to raise their prices. And all of the businesses that I talked to said that the financial impact of switching their packaging hasn't been anything they can't handle. And they said the switch to other kinds of packaging is more of an inconvenience than anything else. So having to change how they package their food, like in bags and having smaller containers and not having the kind of insulation that they want to keep their coffee hot. So that was really the problem, less than an economic burden. And the only person that I talked to of all of the businesses that said that this ban created an economic burden was a Dunkin' Donuts manager. But again, they're switching over as a company anyway. So in general, styrofoam bans in other municipalities have gone well. And when I identified this problem of styrofoam litter, I chose to approach it with an ordinance because I was inspired firstly by these other municipalities that have had successful styrofoam bans. And also because when Governor LePage vetoed LD 57, which was a proposed statewide ban on styrofoam, and I think a ban or a fee on plastic bags, he said in his veto that the reason he didn't support it was because it should be up to individual municipalities to implement these kind of bans, and they are responsible for them. And thirdly, the environmental impact of styrofoam litter is so harmful that I think it calls for immediate action from the town. So the longer we wait to make a change as a community, the more styrofoam will be littered, and the more of it there will be in the environment. And I know in Rockland there's huge support from individuals and businesses in the styrofoam ban that they're pursuing, and Camden is pursuing a ban as well. So on either side of us, towns are making the decision to minimize their use of styrofoam, and it seems like a timely decision for Rockport to make too. So in conclusion, styrofoam is a clear problem in Rockport, and a ban on just styrofoam takeout containers would have a minimal impact on businesses with the huge environmental benefit of reducing the amount of styrofoam that we have in the environment. So thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Fran?
I had a quick one. So, in section 4 of the, and I know that we're not tonight voting on ordinance language, I get that.
Yeah.
But I was just, I had read over this again. Section 4, permitted expanded polystyrene containers. Nothing in this article shall be construed to prohibit customers. Was this section just to allow individual customers to go into a takeout and have their own styrofoam container and receive their stuff in that way?
Yeah,
Okay.
just to not limit what they use themselves.
I don't have a question, but I would like to just make a quick comment. I've had the opportunity over the last several months to work with several of our high school students from the environmental cleanup crew. And then hearing Fran's presentation tonight, I must tell you, I'm terribly impressed with this group of students that's coming through right now. You know, I think back to my high school days, you wouldn't see me standing up there doing this sort of thing. And the folks that are involved with the environmental cleanup crew and the work they're doing with the Keep Rockport Beautiful Town Committee is commendable. So I want to thank you very much for your efforts here.
Yeah, you've done a terrific job, and the research that has gone into this is formidable, and I saw it at the ORC, which is why I wanted to bring it before the whole board. I think you've done a great job. We're probably not too late to get it on in June, because we literally would have to set the public hearing in 2 nights, but I think as long as the board has a consensus that we should pursue this, that we can ask the manager to submit this ordinance language to the attorneys and have them get a look at it and get it on as soon as we possibly can, which may be November, or if we have a special town meeting for any other topic, we could do it then as well. I'm looking around the board members just for nods in the head to say, let's
I'd be in
proceed.
favor of, doing it as soon as practical.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? I hate drinking out of those styrofoam cups. I actually won't go to a place that has those styrofoam cups because they taste funny to me. But some of the cups, I think you said at Three Dog, they have their paper-lined styrofoam on the outside. Are those included in that batch too?
Is this a hybrid styrofoam?
Great question, because they say that it's not styrofoam, but it looks and feels like
The
styrofoam.
outside is styrofoam.
Yeah, it's, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, so we looked at those pretty closely.
Up to the
And-
mic,
Yeah, you-
up to the mic.
We explored those exact cups that you're talking about, and that would definitely be up for debate.
So, Owen, what was the conversation on the state level that you were part of, and how did you answer towards that, yes or no?
I think I voted for it.
I think that
Do you know how many
he
bills
would
I
not have
voted
had
on,
No,
Mary?
I'm
come
wondering what
home,
you were.
he would have
I
come
think it
home
got
with an
vetoed,
angry
right?
wife
Right.
It got vetoed.
if he had not voted for that one.
Yeah, and then it got vetoed and it passed, but because it got vetoed, we didn't have enough to do 2/3.
Yep.
I think that what I'm happy with is that there's a lot of issues that we could be going after, and this is one of them. And it's like, we don't need to go after them all at one time. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. And
Well,
the approach I think you're taking is a good approach, to take the most obvious litter problem and focus on that first. and then
One of the
work-
things I had noticed and was mentioned that Dunkin' Donuts is gonna do it by, did you say 2020?
2020, yeah.
But yet you're enacting it for January 1st, 19. So does that mean if they're still using it, even though we know that they're gonna be getting rid of it, are we gonna be finding them that year?
Yeah, yeah.
That'll have to be part of the discussion.
Well, I'm saying that it might not be 19 that we start it. We ought to pick a more generous date to allow
Well,
contracts.
here's the thing is, every one of those stores
They have alternatives.
had alternatives. They all have alternatives in stock, and it was just that they had styrofoam as another alternative in addition to the other paper cups that they
I
have.
was just looking at the conflict between the start date and what we know people are going to be switching over.
Well, just the other day, I got a coffee down at Dunkin' Donuts in Damascotta, and it took me a minute, but then I realized it was a paper cup, so Damascotta's made the switch.
Was
Did
it
they
a
make this-
latte? Did they give it?
And-
No,
and
because they
we
got
also need to
latte
remember
cups.
that Dunkin'
this
Donuts
was
also has
regular
buying
paper.
power. And so because they buy from distributors, while they would financially be impacted the most because they're already going this route, we don't know when Rockport's going to switch over. They're already starting to do so right now. Yeah.
Well, I think the research that Fran did that shows us how many establishments would be impacted, which is minimal, I think, is very valuable in that. And I think when we're developing the ordinance, we'll have to decide, do we want to give somebody a pass for a short period of time or not? And I think we could go either way on that.
They've got plenty of, they should have plenty
Yeah.
of warning,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and the thing that I was observing the crafting of this process, and what I like is it's different than the Camden ban, because instead of an ongoing fining, it's a one-time annual. So basically, you could pay the $250 and then serve styrofoam all for an entire year, and then pay $250 the next year
Do it
and
again.
serve styrofoam again.
Might have to make that number a little higher.
Well, yeah, you're right.
I mean, I haven't had a chance to read through the ordinance, but it may be one of the things you want to consider if we move forward with this, is making sure that the $250 fine doesn't go it's earmarked for cleanup efforts, to make sure that it goes back to the cleanup effort.
The Keep Rockport Beautiful Fund.
Well, it could show up as a conservation committee revenue or something like
Right, yeah,
that.
so it should go back, to that. And then the other comment I'd like to make is that I think if we all of it, I mean, I know if I go to a place and they're using a different kind of packaging or paper straws or whatever, I comment and say thank you to them and recognize that they have to make a change. They're making a change and they're doing it. So I would encourage us all to, just say thank you when we see that from our supplier, our food vendors.
Actually, we might want to include plastic straws in there while we're at it, but okay.
Those are easier to pick up than the styrofoam is. You're totally right. You grab at the picker and you get this one little chunk of styrofoam and the rest of the
Breaks
cup
up.
stays
away.
down there on the ground.
Yeah.
Have you talked with Isabel Baker about this?
I haven't.
She's in second grade.
Oh, yes.
She was the first you have?
Yes, we have.
Because I was talking with her at the daddy-daughter dance and let her know that you had beat her to the styrofoam takeout container ban. She'd been working on it, yeah,
She
okay.
has to move on to something else.
Something else.
We'll be working with the Conservation Commission.
Okay. All right. Well, I think, Rick, if you can just, get the language down and have the lawyers take a quick look at it. And it looks pretty good to me, but they'll probably have a few little tweaks here and there.
It wouldn't hurt to raise the fine amount a little.
Yeah, that's a plug number. We can change that when we adopt it.
For the first year, oh, well, we would have to amend the ordinance every time we wound up it, huh?
Yeah.
Do
Change it to
it,
every
do it and make
week.
it good the first time.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight, Fran.
Appreciate it.
And, really appreciate your presentation.
Hey, it's incentive.
Okay, next item is to consider
Just keep doing it every year.
Sorry.
Consider a increase in fees for trash disposal at the Midcoast Solid Waste Disposal Transfer Station.
Jim was hoping to be here. He's obviously he's not going to make it. But part of the discussion has been going on for some time. Owen, you've been
Yeah.
on that committee for your whole term, correct?
No.
Oh, you were?
Tracy was on it for the first year.
About the need to increase bag prices and disposal costs. It's been coming up for many years. It's been talked about and talked about and talked about. I've made comments a number of times that I wish that the bag price was higher, because it would be a better incentive for people to recycle.
Thank you.
And so the board has finally made a motion to increase the bag prices, but the piece that has to happen is the boards in the 4 towns have to sign on to that increase in order for it to take effect. And so Jim was planning on being here to present his case tonight. You have a letter in your packet, but he's ill and was unable to make it. I think he was is Camden meeting tonight too?
No, don't they meet?
Tuesday.
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays. It might have been Lincolnville. I think he was trying
And
to.
I
do
read Jim's
today.
letter, and his rationale makes a lot of sense to me. I like the idea that the last time, and I remember Bill Chapman saying the last time they raised it, we're gonna raise it, but we're gonna hold that for 5 years, and they were able to hold it for 5 years, and so I think that that's fine. And I'll let, Owen, you probably
Well,
have.
the other good thing was, when Jim came to us with this first, he had it up to $3. And the budget made all kinds of sense with a $3 bag fee. But then that seemed to be a bit of an unreasonable jump. So running it at $2.50, the budget still made a lot of sense. I'll highlight our assessment at $250 will be $150,000 versus $200,000 if we had kept it flat. Like Rick said, this had been kind of projected going forward. We did debate for a while the bundles, the bundles of bags, because it's on an even number, and going from $2 to $250 starts facilitating making change. And so if you keep it at 5 bags per bundle, then it's $12.50 versus $10 even. And so we were trying to figure out if we wanted to bump it up to, was it 6 bags at $15?
Yeah, I think that's what they
Or
ended up.
4 at sticking at 10. And we decided that 4 sticking at 10 made sense, because 4 bags is still a decent amount of bags, and it makes that gate time quicker. It makes, the folks working the gate not have to break change, and especially, 5 and a 10 versus just a 10.
And there was even discussion about the stock that they had of the existing bags. That
Right.
we could sell those at the town offices because we can make change pretty quickly.
Right.
As opposed to at the gate. It's tough for them at the gate to make.
Because all of the bags that we've purchased are still useful bags, we can still sell them, just the price is different, and yeah, we'd cycle them to town offices to make it easier at the
I
gate,
mean, I tend to buy mine in the grocery store,
yeah.
just because it's easier.
I got myself in trouble, I said I buy mine at EBS, and I pointed to, was it David
Oh,
on the
yeah.
board? David works at Rankin's,
Rankin's.
not at EBS. But yeah, we talked about it, Rick, remind me, I don't remember hearing any significant dissenting opinion. I mean, I remember Wendy talking about the quality of the bags. She thought that
Yeah.
the bags had
Yep.
shrunk a little bit. Jim did talk about material of the bags, but that's kind of deviating from just the price, but
The biggest conversation, the lengthiest conversation wasn't on the price.
it was on the number in a
The
bundle.
number of bags and whether to go with 4 or 6 bags in a bundle.
Well, I mean, for me, it costs us more to get rid of our stuff, and that's the way it ought to be, because we're running out of places to put our stuff, so this makes all the sense in the world to me.
Anyone have any?
And when is the single stream gonna come in?
So we voted, we took a straw poll. We haven't officially voted to move to single stream, have we?
Yeah, I thought you did, but I wasn't
Oh,
at the meeting.
Yeah, we did. I texted you all my notes, didn't I?
The reason I ask is because I think if we go to single stream, then
We are
people
going to single
will
stream.
be able to,
The whole new
Recycle
design.
a little
yes,
more
no, we
easily
did.
and-
Yes, we definitely, yeah, we voted.
and
we're-
people will have less demand for the yellow bags, so that may mean that they, that their annual expense for yellow bags might actually not go up if they're single streaming more stuff.
We have also had conversations about blue bags for the single stream materials
Recycled.
and potentially doing that as well.
Yeah.
But that's not a fleshed out conversation yet.
I move to approve the price increase of trash disposal bags voted on by the MCSW Board of Directors as follows. 33-gallon bags, individual, $2.50 each, which is up from $2 each. 33-gallon bags to be sold in bundles of 4 rather than 5, $10. Smaller kitchen liner bags to be sold in bundles of 10 for $15, which is up from $12. And the per ton fee for MCSW, $166 per ton, up from $133 per ton.
Have a
Second.
motion, have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay, next item is to consider developing a tobacco-free policy for the town of Rockport, for town vehicles and town property. And I know Jason he got called out, he was a big part of this, so, Rick, if you want to jump us off on that one?
Yeah, we already have a tobacco-free policy for employees that was adopted in 14 or? Oh, it's not, it's smoking. Smoking.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, I've got some, I'm waiting.
Yeah, so but one of the things was to change that policy by eliminating one whole section of the policy and just say that employees are not allowed to smoke on or use tobacco products on town property, period. And so you'd have to physically leave the property. We've only got, maybe one smoker that works part-time, and I don't think we have any other.
Yeah, but
We have
what's
two.
proposed affects everyone,
Right, but
not
the
just
point,
employees.
Yeah, well, no, there's two pieces to it. There's the one piece that affects employees. And then the other piece that we're talking about is moving, do you want me to develop something that just restricts smoking and use of tobacco products on all town properties that would affect beyond employees, that would affect residents coming to the town property?
or anybody else for that matter.
Or anybody
residents
else.
or not.
Right, yeah, residents and non-residents. It's easy for us to control what employees do, a little harder for us to control what residents do.
Visual aid.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for this. I think that public property should be free of that stuff for those who don't partake. And I think, as Rick and I have talked, with the employees, you can set it in policy, and if an employee violates the policy, then the manager has the latitude to impose some sort of discipline. It's a little more difficult to enforce as far as a public park type situation. You know, it would be almost impossible for us to get down there and, you know,
Yeah.
put your finger on everybody who goes down and has a cigarette in the Harbor Park or something like that. But on the other hand, if the signs are up, they can be gently asked or gently reminded that this is the case and they should cease and desist, so. As far as instructing the manager, I'm happy to instruct the manager to proceed with this in terms of both the change in the personnel policy and in terms of developing an ordinance for all town properties.
I'm not.
No, I mean, I wouldn't think so either. You know, you're talking about being able to govern your employees and penalize them, but not necessarily doing anything to your people that are going on to other town properties. And what teeth are you gonna have, other than just telling them, don't do it, or, you know, it'd be nice if you didn't do it? Are you gonna affix a fine to that, like you do your styrofoam, throwaways, your penalties? I mean, there's no talk of that, but. I
We
mean,
could, but even if we do that, I think the reality of being able to enforce it is difficult.
so
You
there-
know that.
So there again, why develop a policy that,
Well, because I think that there is some power in putting the signs up and asking people not to do it.
I mean, we've
Because
got-
I look, for example, at the situation in Camden with the town Village Green across from where I work. And for a long time, that was basically known as the smokers' park, because everybody who couldn't smoke in their office went out there, sat on the benches and smoked, and they had big coffee cans full of cigarette butts, and they didn't all end up in the can, they were all over the place, and they, you know, made a mess and all that kind of stuff, and they voted in something like this, and now it's not that way anymore.
so you have a current policy that prohibits it within 15 feet of
For employees.
for,
It's
But-
in the personnel policy for employees.
it doesn't take into account for the public as well?
Not now.
I think it says within 15 feet of the buildings, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's
But
just,
it
it's
is
for the employees.
designated for
Personnel
employees.
policy.
Lives in the
And
personnel
actually,
policy.
one of the bigger, though I have some smaller concerns with this, one of my bigger concerns is the fact that we're doing, what is proposed, unless I've got it wrong, what is proposed is banning taxpayers from smoking cigarettes on the property that they pay taxes to keep, and we're doing it in a personnel policy change and not.
No,
in
No,
a-
no, we wouldn't do it in the personnel, we would, that would be two separate things. The
Right.
personnel policy, we can deal with one, and then we would
For
develop a
employees.
separate ordinance.
Well, thank
for-
you for that clarification, because that was kind of concerning that
Yep, no.
we would do something as vast as that in the personnel policy and
no.
not let the
No.
citizens vote on if they want
No,
to.
it would be an ordinance, that's what Camden did, they developed an ordinance that would basically would.
And not that I have any experience with this, but what's the gripe about the smokeless tobacco? They're not blowing that in people's faces.
Well, you know, interestingly, just the other day, Abby was telling me some of the most trash she picks up down in the Harbor Park was from those little tins.
Really? Some people, not the,
Well,
not
that's
the,
littering, right.
not the empty cigarette packs.
Cigarette
Well,
butts.
she somehow singled out the little tins. I didn't
No, those
pursue
little
it,
tins,
but
I see them sometimes at the store. They close, and I bet they would float. They would probably float on top of the water.
well,
Which would be its own issue.
We're gonna end up voting on this?
Well, I'm just
Well,
going,
there's two pieces. One is to change the personnel policy that eliminates that section about allowing it within 15 feet of the building for employees. And then employees wouldn't be allowed to smoke on town property, period. And then.
I move to remove Article 23A12 from the town personnel policy that creates a smoking area for employees to smoke on town-owned property.
Have a motion, is there a second? I will second the motion.
I can see where this is going.
well, you know, I guess one of the
Move the
problems.
question along.
Discussion on the motion.
I've never seen an issue right in front of the town office, and that's the only kind of place where the employees are smoking. There may be issues down to the harbor, but that's the general citizenry. And so getting your arms around trying to tell the general citizenry that they're not allowed.
Well, the motion is, right now is having to do with the
I
personnel
know.
policy. We'll talk about the
Well,
other
that's another
issue
question.
separately.
So one of the things I'm gonna say is, we talked about in your manager's report about not having time to do things. but yet we're busting our hump trying to get a no smoking policy amended.
I have been, that's the
I know,
safety
I'm
committee,
just-
the safety committee has been
I'm
working
just
on
saying,
it.
I mean, you know,
I have had very little to do with this. This is coming through the safety committee.
And
Well, it
Jason-
comes
That's why Megan's here.
right, it comes through them to you, which is recommending it to us. So you would have had to have taken a look at it somewhere.
Yeah, I took a look at it, yeah.
So,
So, but in effect, removing part 2 under section A, that will make it so the one town employee that we have has to do what
It's
to go
actually two.
smoke?
They have to leave the town property to smoke.
Are they afforded a union mandated break that they have the opportunity to go and consume?
of Labor requires that we give a break.
do they require you to provide a place for them to have a break?
I love the stuff about smoking cessation and encouraging people not to consume the substance. I'm all about it, but I'm not big on telling people they can't or making.
The Department of Labor requires that you provide an employee who works 6 hours or more at least a 15-minute break, paid break. And
Doesn't say
then they
it's
can
for
add
smoking.
on to that too, a 30-minute lunch break if they work more than that. It does not, the Department of Labor does not require you to provide a place for a person to take a break to smoke. It does not require, it does. Parts of the Department of Labor statute can argue that it requires you to have a break room for your employees and things of that sort, but it does not require you to provide a place for your employees.
So how far down the road, no pun intended, are you gonna chase them when they jump in their car and go off and sit on the edge of the town-owned road? I mean, technically, they're still on town property.
If they're off, you know, if they're, the question will come up is if they're in their car, is that town property or not town, you know?
Actually, no, their car is not.
No, but it's on town property.
It's on
It's
town
on town
property.
property.
So if they're sitting in the parking lot, taking their break in their car,
The purpose of this from the safety committee was to limit the secondhand smoke to other employees that do not smoke. And I guess that it has become a problem at one or more of our municipal buildings that has brought this to light.
Yeah, we're behind the curve on this a little bit. You look at a lot of large employers around, and this is a trend that's coming. We can put it off kicking and screaming, but,
Well, and I think the fact that we only have the 2 part-time employees now who smoke makes it a good time to do it because we're not gonna be inconveniencing a large number of people, and future hires will understand when they come that this is a smoke-free workplace and that they're gonna have to be able to work their shift.
tobacco-free.
Tobacco-free
Not smoking.
workplace.
Well, actually, in the personnel policy, it's smoke-free.
So why don't we have that smoke-free and tobacco-free instead of just smoke-free then?
I'm okay with that.
Well, no,
No,
I'm just saying.
no, this clearly says, in light of these findings, it will be town policy to provide a smoke-free environment for employees, clients, and visitors. This policy covers the smoking of any tobacco product and the use of smokeless or spitting tobacco and applies to employees, customers, and visitors as follows.
Yeah, that piece should not really be living.
It's
in-
visitors of the employee, though. The employee cannot permit their personal visitors to smoke on town property.
No, but what if they came in with a tobacco in their mouth?
I mean, that's how the policy's read all along. It's nothing that.
And that was
changed.
actually when I
It
first, I was
probably-
like, I didn't approve this. And then I was like, oh, I approved the personnel policy. I guess
And the other thing we probably need to think about too is the smokeless cigarettes, the electronic cigarettes too.
E-cigarettes, the vaping.
Yeah, so have we covered all of the things we want to include in this?
And we're not,
So what happens if somebody comes in with a medical marijuana certificate and they're allowed to smoke on the property based on their medical needs?
well, no, the medical marijuana is not allowed to be used except, you would know better than I, when the laws on that are very specific about where you can use it.
Yeah, you can't just consume in public. I mean, you could, in theory, consume an edible in public, but not smoking.
You know, we can do all sorts of what-ifs and how about this, how about that, but I mean, I think what we're looking to do is just sort of set a general policy, and, you know, there may be disagreement here on the board, and I guess if there is, you know, we ought to move on to the next topic.
Yeah, we could bring it back, make some revisions. Being clear, we're talking about two different things here. One is for employees in the personnel policy, and the next is, do you want us to move forward with any kind of ordinance language that would limit use of tobacco products on town property, on all town property?
Well, I don't think you ought to pick on just town employees. I think if you're gonna do it, make it widespread so that anybody that comes onto a town property.
We have a motion on the table.
Well, no,
We're talking about.
I have a
the-
question too, because it's difficult for me to wrap my head around. Is this something that the employees want or need? I think, Megan, you said that there was one or so municipal buildings where this may be an issue, but I haven't heard, I'm not really allowed to hear too much stuff from the employees, so I'm having a difficult time wrapping my head around the extent of this problem. Has there been a lot of complaining with the employee base? Summertime activity when the windows are open?
Yes.
There has been.
There has been complaints. In addition to the regular 2 full-time employees that we have at least 1 volunteer firefighter, who, from what I understand from Jason, is not really a problem, but we need to look in the future too. Like, there's no policy that says somebody hired at Public Works can't smoke in our trucks, or anything along those lines. There's no rule that says a police officer can't sit and smoke in.
It's in the personnel policy.
Yeah, I thought you couldn't do in the vehicles, which I'm okay with, because that's like a retail value. That's just kind of nasty to smoke in the vehicles.
Somebody else has to use it.
Right.
Surprisingly, I didn't realize it, but when I went down to the highway garage recently, there's a sign on the highway garage that has been there for many years. Before that policy was adopted, probably, this is a smoke-free environment. And none of the guys at the Public Works garage smoke.
That was put up in humor, sort of thumbing their nose at the policy when it was going in.
Oh, what, really?
If I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah, it's been up there for a while.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. If there's,
Well, if you want it to pass, you should probably let me have a little more time to find out where the employees are coming from.
I'm asking if there's further discussion.
Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm trying to figure out if it's broke.
All of the members of the safety committee were unanimous. Whatever.
Unanimous.
Yes.
How many members on
In favor of.
How many members on that committee?
8.
Where are which properties, was it the harbor, the highway?
I
Everything.
don't think that
Where-
really matters.
Where were the most generated so that we could focus our attention there?
Well, and I'm having a hard time splitting this conversation. I'm trying to keep it focused on the employees, but I've been hearing more that it's, the cigarette butts at the harbor are an issue.
Well, the motion that's on the floor has to do with the personnel policy.
has the personnel
So we need to
policy.
talk about the employee situation right now that Megan is, we can talk about the other piece later, once we dispose of this
I
motion.
guess in order for me to vote in favor of it, I'd have to see a better crafted thing that would cover anything from e-cigarettes to everything.
We can do that.
So
On
as
a
it's.
table, if you want to you can vote, if
it'll
it's going to be split.
It might be 2-2.
Yeah.
Well, we
it's
can
gonna be
vote,
split,
we can
it's
vote
no.
on the motion, and then if the motion doesn't pass, there's no action taken, we can,
Table it.
instruct the manager to bring
back
back
with a
something else in
revised.
the next time, so. Let me get back to that. So this motion basically would say that all this motion would do would be to remove the smoking area that's currently provided to employees 15
Correct.
feet from the buildings. That's all it would do.
My last question on that, have there been members of the public that have made complaints, or is it town employees that have made complaints?
That's a good question.
That would be a question for Jason.
Why isn't he here then?
He got called, he got a call.
So wait a
So
second.
you should know that, though. I mean, you're the one that is running this
Jason's-
committee.
Well, Jason's the chair of the safety committee.
But no, everything comes through you, though, right? I mean, so
I
where
haven't-
do the complaints come from?
I
Is it
haven't-
from the public or from employees?
No, I haven't heard of any complaints about employees smoking from the public.
So we don't have any complaints, but we're
I
going
think
to
it's from
amend.
from other
I
employees.
think it's from other employees. I don't think.
Right, because every time people smoke behind the building, not out front. So I've never pulled into the town office and seen an employee smoking.
It's not at the town office.
Yeah, we
that
don't have
a
any employees at
problem.
the town office who smoke.
So
And as a non-smoker, which I don't know who else, it's for someone that doesn't smoke to walk through secondhand smoke or have someone come into the building who just smoked a cigarette. It's disgusting, for lack of a better word. It's a very hard thing to work next to when someone's just been outside and comes back in
Call the
reeking
vote.
of cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Well, I will, as long as there's no more discussion.
I'm just trying to get,
So
here.
if it's just removing the smoking area, have we prohibited employees from smoking on town property? If you're saying that all we're
Yes.
doing is removing the smoking area, that in effect removes,
Yes.
because they can only smoke at designated smoking areas, is that?
Right now, the policy reads that they can smoke anywhere outside of 15 feet from the building.
At a
Bring-
designated,
There's no designated, it just says 15 feet away from the building.
so if we
Policy says there will
remove
be a
this,
designated smoking area 15 feet outside the town's facilities, and that
Just
you have to keep it
everything
clean.
outside of
And what
15
this
feet.
motion does is just basically remove that section about the smoking area.
so then can they just stand 20 feet away,
Seems like there's a
not
lot,
next to
there's a
something?
lot of questions, and I think we got the gist of all the questions, and this horse is on his back, his feet are sticking in the air. I think we can come back and do some revisions on this piece. My advice would take the vote,
so, yeah.
have it be
This is
split,
how I've called the vote, let's take the vote.
have it be split, and we'll come back.
Is there any further discussion?
Go ahead.
All right, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? 2-2, the motion
I
fails.
think we have a sense,
Just the
and-
beginning of many, probably.
Yeah, and we have the virtue of live stream, and we can go back and listen to the discussion again, and.
Well, and do we want to
Whatever
open
that
up,
was.
now, this discussion was about the
That just-
personnel
that
policy.
just
Do we
right.
want to talk about the wider ban on all town property for everybody? Do people want to?
So that was initiated by, there have been complaints at the harbor about people coming down, smoking when there's children right there. As a parent, I've been to Walker Park, someone lights a cigarette right next to where my kids swing in. Things like that is what really initiated that next step.
See, this I feel a little bit differently about. I think it's one thing when you have employees in town buildings. I'm certainly not a fan of smoking. I think it causes a lot of harm in our society. But I'm also, there's a streak of me that's sort of libertarian, and if someone wants to smoke, that's sort of a personal choice, but it's that old story about, where does one person's right begin and another person's right end? And so it's a little bit trickier when you're talking about public spaces.
And I don't mind, having something on there, but don't just have it on there to have it on there. I mean,
Have it-
that's like having a roaming dog. I mean, you have a fine that goes with it, which is $50, which doesn't cover anything. And so if you're gonna develop something that has some teeth, and either you do it or don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with putting a fine on, you could even do something like, the person gets a warning or whatever, and if they persist, then they get fined or something like that, so you can put some teeth in it. I mean, the goal of it is to reduce smoking in public properties, because, as Doug said, somebody can go to a park and smoke, and that's their right, but on the other hand, that infringes on other people's rights to enjoy the park without having to deal with secondhand smoke, especially, if you're sitting in, like Megan says, in Walker Park, it's not that big. And if you're sitting on a bench watching your kid play on the playground equipment or something, and somebody lights up a cigarette next to you, that ruins the experience right away. Not to mention the litter of the
So-
cigarette butts and stuff like that show up, so.
We don't have any parks that have grills in them, do we?
Yeah, we
down-
do.
Do Walker
Yeah,
Park?
yeah. So, okay, so somebody goes down, they're frying a steak down there, and then somebody comes in that's a vegetarian and says, I don't want you frying steaks on there anymore, because I want to fry vegetables on that thing. I mean, where are we gonna, go with this.
$50 fine.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a demonstrated health hazard to that, as there is with secondhand
Well,
smoke.
Depends on how long you cook the steak for.
People might, you know.
Well, all we have to do this evening is, do we want Rick to look into this, developing this policy for the public property or not? I would like to see it developed and fleshed out a little bit to see, maybe as Mark says, maybe to see what we get out of it and see how it might work. I would like to see that.
I would too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it, put some substance to it with fines.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, even though we have a contract with our attorney, the paperwork goes through the PD, and it goes to the manager, and goes to the attorney, and then back up. But we should make it something of substance.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
We're gonna send it to the citizens, they get to vote on it.
Any ordinance, yeah.
If we,
Any ordinance would
yeah.
be, yeah.
but as far as crafting
Okay,
something, I'm fine
I
with
think
that.
we've beat that one to death. Next item, discussion regarding a possible ordinance regulating the discharge of firearms within the town of Rockport. This is something that Tom actually called me about before he resigned, and.
Is that the
and-
same guy,
What you saying?
Tom? Is that the same Tom Gray that was here?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh. How quickly I forget.
Earth to Mars.
And his point
Oh,
was,
listen, I'm poking fun at my
his,
golden maid there.
when he talked to me about it, which was before he resigned, he said he, more than anything, just wanted to have the board have a discussion about it, given the events that are going on nationally and things of that nature. Camden does have an ordinance, which we have in our packet, and then we have voluminous state laws to look at as well. And so basically, again, just as the sense of the board that this is something that we would like to pursue. There are some state laws that apply right now that give people the right, for example, if an animal is destroying their agricultural crops, they have the right to deal with that with a firearm if they so choose, and personal protection and stuff like that, so. And I read the Camden ordinance through, and actually, I thought it was reasonably well done. The defining of the areas was a little difficult or whatever, but what's the sense of the board on this?
I'm not really very interested in pursuing this right now.
Neither am I.
Not particularly.
That's the sense of the board.
I'm working gun stuff on the state end, so I don't
mean-
know about being further restrictive on the town end.
I mean, if the state laws are adhered to, they pretty much cover a lot
They
of,
do
a lot
cover-
of what we would worry about.
What's the state law with respect to, I know that you can't discharge within some distance of a residential?
It's an inhabitable structure.
You
is,
can't
I
even do
believe,
it
the
from your own
term.
your own house.
Right, but what's that distance? Is it, does anybody know?
Isn't it?
300,
300 feet?
I think
Maybe
it is.
100 yards.
It was a little bit more than 300 feet. Maybe I'm wrong. You're the cop.
Well, I think if,
Used to be.
if the state laws cover it pretty well, then I'm comfortable with it. And obviously, it's,
And it would take a great deal, you'd have to, you know, my vision of that would be, you'd get a game warden involved, you would have hunters involved that
Yeah.
live in town. There would be public from varying parts of town. I mean, the town has grown with many developments around, but for the most part, I can't recall of any big complaints,
I'll say
you know.
two things real quick, and I'm kind of speaking to Tom or anyone at home that's interested in this. Defining the areas that some folks would feel make sense, like Camden and some of the other towns have done. If folks come back with these areas more defined, then I would be happy to consider that if the citizenry, comes and tells us that, this is something that we should be looking at and things are a little bit more fleshed out. I'm happy to take a second look at it. One thing though, reading through Camden's ordinance, it applies to pellet guns too. So the little BB gun that I have.
Oh, really?
Pump, pump, pump.
I mean, you
It
could,
would apply to that as well. That's under the definition of firearm.
I mean, you could make it as restrictive as to shotguns only, no rifles.
yeah.
But, I mean, that's why,
Well, I mean, the thing that struck me is how much is this really an issue? I mean, I understand on a national level, we need to have a serious discussion, and I'm all for that. But, what does, restricting, where in Rockport you can fire a firearm, really contribute to that discussion. It's more of a political statement than a real answer to any problem.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll file that one away as, if more information comes to light or if something, more defined comes to light, then we could consider it at that point, but for now, we'll move on. Okay, we have a quitclaim deed that Linda has provided for us to take a look at.
Seems pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think it's, they're paid, they're all current, and,
And you've got a good address for her now?
Yes, she actually came into the office the other day and was surprised to find out that we had foreclosed on her timeshare. She came in to pay it, but she hadn't paid 2014, 15, 16, or 17. So she went to the bank, got the cash, and gave it to me, and I'm holding it until you make your decision.
okay. Well, can somebody make a motion? We'd have to refer to the map and lot number, I think.
There's no verbiage for the motion.
Yeah, there's, so I'll take a stab at it, but, correct, yeah, but it
That's the
says,
same
I
thing we've
recommend that you approve this
Yeah,
request.
no, just include the name and the map and lot number, and the motion will be fine.
So,
Execute a quitclaim.
I
deed.
move to approve the quitclaim deed for Rosemary J. Murphy, map T01, lot A17-009, starting now. Does
We have a
that
second?
work for your purposes, Linda?
It does.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's done. Okay, need a motion to go in as wastewater commissioners.
Did I not get, I never read over sewer stuff.
You got it tonight. It wasn't in the packet.
That's-
So need a motion to go in as wastewater.
I move to exit as select board and enter as wastewater commissioner.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. I will take some time to tell you about this, because it looks more daunting than it really is. When we adopted the sewer ordinance a few years ago, we took out a lot of the stuff, like the fees and some of the stuff, and put it in rules and regulations, so that every time there was a little change to that, we didn't have to have the voters go back and vote on the ordinance again. And then to adopt the rules and regulations, we kind of got to the end, and there was a personnel change with Bill Napower leaving, and the committee kind of fell apart. So quick and dirty rules and regulations were approved, and the only thing in Chapter 1 of the rules and regulations, what you have at the front here is the face page of the rules and regulations of Chapter 1 through 5. The only thing in Chapter 1 was a schedule of fees that looked something like this guy right here. That was the only thing that was there. And there have been a few changes in this one. It was a little confusing, and Scott Bickford came to me a while ago and said, we need to make this more clear. And so that's what we've done. Scott did some work on doing things, so in connection with Scott, I've sort of put together a new Chapter 1, which is what you have after the face page here. The Section 1 is there are two lists of what are called the Commissioners' Authorized Representatives to do stuff in the sewer. And that's, one of them is an alphabetical list of all the stuff that they can do, and the other one is a list by the representative, because we have different representatives that do certain things. The plumbing inspector, which is Scott, does some things, Public Works does some things.
Does Woodard Kern do
Yep,
stuff?
the wastewater system operator does some things, and in the end, Rick does some things where he's talking about assessing penalties, so.
And every one of those could be considered the commissioner's authorized representative?
For the particular process that's going on.
Gotcha.
So Scott had put two lists here, and he said, which one do you want? I said, well, I kind of like having them both in here, because it's a way to look at things in two different ways. He pushed back a little bit, but eventually he said, so that's what we have here is Section 1. It's just the list of what the various people do, so that somebody coming in wanting to put in sewer service can say, okay, if I need to do this, I need to go talk to the local plumbing inspector, or I need to go talk to the Public Works director, or whatever it might be. Okay. Section 2 is the fee definitions and schedule. And the first is the definition, and this is what I worked on mostly, just so people know what the various things are. The first two, everybody should be fairly familiar with. That's a debt service and capital maintenance fee. That's the quarterly fee that you pay if the sewer goes by your house, whether you're connected or not. The second one is a sewer usage fee, and that's based on the water usage. So that's basically how much stuff are you dumping down the drain, and we're gonna meter that and charge you for it. We set those fees every year in our wastewater budget, okay? And then the next two were the ones that were causing Scott some difficulty, and it was a little bit difficult to understand. The first one is a sewer connection fee. When somebody wants to connect to the sewer, they have to pay a fee, which basically covers the cost of all the stuff that's in the definition there. They have to pay the fee before they can get the permit, and the insurance has to be there and all that stuff. That fee is per equivalent user. An equivalent user is basically defined as sort of like a 3-bedroom house. So if you have a really big house, then you're gonna be more equivalent users, and it's gonna cost more. If it can't be less than 1 equivalent user. Okay. So if you have the sewer running by your house, you want to hook up, you've got to pay that. That right now, that fee, if you look to the next page, the schedule is $1,000 per equivalent user. So if you have a large business that has a lot of bathrooms and stuff like that, they're going to be assessed as a larger number of equivalent users. And the definition of equivalent use is here on the front page as well. It's sort of generic, but basically there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, having to do with basically how much impact are they going to have on the system. The second one is this new sewer extension connection fee, and that's the one that was causing some difficulty for people. And that's a fee that the select board decided when we had the new sewer extension to assess people on the new sewer extension to basically make whole the people who have been on the sewer system for many years and paying that debt service and capital maintenance fee, basically maintaining the system. And here comes along somebody new who has not been paying that fee, but they're getting the benefit of the fact that this system has been maintained for 20, 25 years or something like that. So it's a little bit like an initiation fee, so to speak. And right now that's listed as $2,000. What I've written into the definitions are two things. On the first, the sewer connection fee, I've written in the case of a new sewer extension to an area not served, this fee may be reduced or waived by the commissioners, that's us, if property owners opt to connect during the completion of the extension. So in other words, well, we got the ground dug up and they want to get connected or whatever, much like Rockport Steel did on the extension down there, we can say, you know what, if you connect now, we'll let a lot of that fee go by. And that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a lot easier to connect when people are hooking up. And then the other thing we found out with that new sewer extension is people didn't rush to connect up right away, and the engineers told us, if you build a new sewer extension and then don't use it, it deteriorates rather quickly, so you lose the asset of the system. So that's the reason to waive that one. And on the new sewer extension connection fee, what I added in there was fees paid, debt service and fees, capital maintenance fees paid prior to connection can be used as a credit against the fee. So for example, again, go down to the Rockport Steel situation where we put the new extension in. If they decided to wait a couple of years before they connected, as soon as that sewer extension goes by, they're now getting a quarterly bill for their debt and capital maintenance fee. So if they pay that for a few years, then they can say, well, we already paid that much in, we can deduct that off that fee. And then eventually, if you get long enough, then the fee would go away. So it's a way to mitigate that somewhat if they don't hook up right away.
So it's just a public utility going by that they're being billed for regardless of...
Right, that's the way the sewer system works, because it adds value to the property. The fact that the sewer connection is available there adds value to the property, and the fact that the system is maintained, so you pay to help maintain it and to retire whatever debt is there.
On that last part that you were talking about, paying the debt service, and it could eventually get to that $2,000, all construction work that would be done, say they did 6 years after we did an extension, that's all paid for by the homeowner. The town, it does not install the extension from our sewer to their house.
Generally, when you build an extension, they put a stub in
Yeah.
at the street, but they don't, you're not routinely putting in the connection. So yeah, when they opt to hook up to the sewer, the homeowner has to pay for the connection to the stub. We provide the stub, and then they pay for whatever. So if their house is, 10 feet from the street versus 100 feet from the street, then they're gonna have to pay more if they have longer piping, just whatever their contractor says. And this will be a change from what we have in this schedule fee, the schedule of fees. What I wanna do, and I sent Scott an email late this afternoon, where it says connection service fee connecting to the system, it's the fourth one down. And then the next one down is a new service fee. I want to change the definition of those two things to match exactly what we have in the
Yeah,
definitions,
yeah.
so that it's abundantly clear of what it is. So I would change those two things, so when I'm looking for a motion, I'll look for the motion as amended. Note number 4 goes away in that one, we don't need that there, because we took it out. And note number 2 at the bottom also is no longer needed, we had that up at the top, but it's already says per equivalent user, so we're gonna be left with only 2 notes, which will apply to the bottom 2 things on the schedule, which is the debt and capital maintenance fee and the usage fee, which basically we set with the budget every year. So, does that all make sense to everybody?
You've been a busy little beaver.
It's been sitting in my head for about 4
I was
years.
gonna say, Scott said it's been taking a while, so. But that's good.
And then section 3, sewer connection procedure, this is just what Scott wrote, and I think it's fine. Section 4, the abatement procedures, we may want to,
Can I ask- Sorry, I just want to
Go
back
ahead.
up. Why are all these negotiated? Is it because we don't know exactly what it?
those are all gonna be
costs?
one-off situations for the most part, like well, okay, look, sewer extension oversight, there's a provision in this, in the sewer ordinance, that if somebody is not on the sewer, but they want sewer service, they can come in and say, I want sewer service at my house, I want you to extend the sewer up to my house. And we could decide as sewer commissioners, oh, that's a good idea, we'll extend it up there and we'll get 3 or 4 more properties on the sewer and that's a good thing. Or we could say, no, we don't think that's in the best interest of the town. That property owner has the ability, under the ordinance, to say, well, I want the sewer extension anyway, and I'm gonna pay for it. And they have to, and they can do that, and then they have to put it in, they have to put it into the town specs, and they pay for it, the town then owns it.
That sounds very similar to a situation we just had last year.
Except we paid
Except we
for it.
ended up paying for it because it made
Yeah,
sense.
it made sense, yeah,
Right,
but.
it was in our plan.
But we could have somebody who says, you know, who has a pocket full of money or whatever, and says, I want the sewer because I don't want a septic system in my house, I want you to extend it over. And as long as they pay for it, and they build it to town specs, they can do it. And then as soon as they finish it, it becomes town property. So they pay for it, but we own it. So that's what a lot of this stuff is, like reviews of owner's design of sewer extension oversight. That will depend on,
The
you know,
size
how
of the
long it is and
project,
stuff like
yeah.
that. And that's what a lot of this stuff is.
That's actually a discussion that my neighborhood has had, because the sewer ends just down the road from us, and there's 5, 6 houses up there. You know, we thought, well, should we all get together and pay for it, or, you know, so it does happen.
Yeah,
Where does it end?
It ends right where Beauchamp comes in.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I hadn't
But
given that any
that's a
thought.
situation where, you know, you guys could come to the commissioners and say, you know, gee, we've got 7 or 8 users here that want it, and the town, we, as commissioners, could decide that's in the town's best interest. to
Oh, so
extend it.
moved.
Lots of, lots of ledge.
Well, there is.
And that might be, you
As
know,
you go up that hill,
might be
it's
an issue,
ledge.
and part of
Yeah.
it would be, well, how much is it gonna cost, and
Yeah.
is the benefit there, or whatever.
Oh,
but-
so
but-
now you're changing your mind. Oh, okay.
I said you could come to us, I didn't say we'd
All right.
vote for it. But anyway, that's the 2 procedures that you could use to get sewer in. So anyway, on to section 3, which is what Scott did, and I think that is good. He put this in just because he wanted people who were coming in to put in sewer service to be able to look at the thing and figure out, okay, here's what I have to do, and when I have to do it, and who I have to talk to, and stuff like that. Section 4, abatement procedures, the only thing there we have to do, and I didn't get a question from Scott about that. Minor abatements, we allow Scott to do. We have to define what that is. And I don't know necessarily what that is off the top of my head. But anything major, we would have to consider as an abatement. For the
What
abatement
have,
procedure.
what have the ones been in the past dollar-wise? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I know we've dealt with ones, I mean, the typical abatements we get are like, somebody's away at their place, they're a summer resident, they're away for the winter,
And it
and a
leaks.
water pipe breaks.
Right.
And they you know, the water runs all winter long or
sure.
whatever, and they get billed for the water, but they can demonstrate very clearly that the water didn't go down the sewer, and so we can abate their sewer charges.
So do you,
That's the least of their problems.
Yeah, exactly. But it, you know, but it can add up
It
to
was
a,
a water
Because
heater.
sometimes it'll break right outside of the house,
Yeah.
and so it'll just
Yeah.
keep leaching,
you
leaching,
know,
leaching.
it can build up to a fair amount of money, actually. I mean, like you say, they got other problems to deal with.
It was one, I think it was a water heater, wasn't it? Broke and it ran all winter.
Yeah, it ran all winter, we had one. Or the other thing is somebody decides, I want to fill up my swimming pool. And you can say, okay, well, you're gonna, because the sewer billing is based on the water usage, if you
Yeah.
can clearly demonstrate that the water you used didn't go down the sewer, then, you know,
so
you can get an
that
abatement.
appears to be just the one little hiccup in having us go ahead with this tonight then is,
Yeah, and
picking
the
a
question
number.
is, you know, what do we want to allow the local plumbing inspector to abate on his own without us getting into it? And, you know, I don't know what that number is, but,
do,
I would be inclined to have that number actually be quite low, because typically with the abatements, I feel really comfortable with all of our abatements because we as a 5-member board did it.
Right.
To put it with one individual, I would be inclined to have it be a pretty low number.
well, let's just pick a number and put it in, and we can change it later. I'd like to adopt these tonight so we
well,
can get
that's
them in
why I
place,
just,
yeah.
if that's the only hiccup,
Yeah. I mean,
$100?
that's what I was gonna say, $100.
Put 100 in.
Put $100 in
And,
there.
you know, if it doesn't,
Did he give you any sense of what?
I forgot to ask him because we were,
Okay.
we were going nuts. And then his last,
This isn't an ordinance, so if it turns out we were
yeah, these are
ungodly low or
regulations. We can
high-
change, yeah, we can
can
change
change
it.
them anytime
We
you
can
want.
change
I don't
it.
have a sense of what $100 translates to.
I don't,
mean,
'cause I'm
want,
not-
I don't
I'm
want
not a user
everybody
either.
who fills up a swimming pool to be coming to us
Well-
for an abatement.
Yeah.
I would assume that when Scott does any of them, he would let us know.
Yeah, he typically would, and.
Well, how
and it
many
says-
gallons does
It says
$100
may
get
be
you?
given at the discretion. He could always, and if it's a difficult case, he may say, you know what, I don't want to decide this one. I'm going to send it to the
Well, what I'm
commissioners.
asking is how much does $100 translate into in gallons? Does anyone know?
Well,
Well, we can
can-
figure it out, actually.
So,
I can tell you my,
Right here.
my bill at the house for 3 months worth
Well,
of
how many
use
cubic feet?
from them.
Thinking
is-
about a gallon and cubic feet.
What?
and then I can't do 9.20 in my head, $9.20.
The rate is $9.20 per 100 cubic feet, so we need to know.
So how many cubic feet in a gallon?
Oh, so a gallon is,
There we go.
Oh, but we can still keep it in
Oh, wait
just
a
cubic feet.
You're-
Oh, but then I can't wrap my head around.
know what the
Well, one
cubic feet
cubic
is,
foot
whatever.
is
We've already
like
been
a little
voted in,
over a
don't worry
gallon.
about making a
weighs
mistake.
64 pounds.
That's right. That's right. That's what that one. I remember. Well, let's put $100 in just for now, and then we can change it later,
Yep.
because that's the beauty of having the
Scott will
regulations.
tell us if he's too busy.
And then the frequently asked questions is just something Scott put in there to, again, help people answer their questions.
So maybe this isn't the time for this conversation, but could someone explain to me why something like access to easement area, you have to go to the LPI, the Public Works Director, and the WSO, which is,
No, it means all those people have to have access to an easement area. So
Okay,
if we've
I'm trying to-
So for example, if we've provided if somebody has given us an easement over their property
these
to
are
serve. on a-
responsibilities, a list of responsibilities. Gotcha, I was confused.
Yeah.
I thought this was
No, it
who
wouldn't mean they'd
people
have to
had
go to all those three
to
people,
when they
yeah.
were doing certain. I was like, wow, we're making them go to a lot of people. I was
This
just
is a pretty
misreading it.
exhaustive list, and some things are a little different than others. But I think it's an improvement on what was there, which was just the table, which is,
Okay, I'm totally gonna shut up after this, but last thing before a motion is, garbage grinder approval when greater than % horsepower. Do we need to put a % horsepower in there? Like an
my
actual.
guess is that's a typo. Let's see if it shows
And-
up. I think it's,
It should probably be
percentage.
a couple of horsepowers versus a percentage of 1 horsepower.
yeah, and see, over here, it comes with some weird things, whatever, so my guess is that that's it got lost in translation in the document with a weird, my guess is it's a number, but I don't know what the number
So
is.
do we want to
If
send
you
it?
can just grab that at
to-
some point. Oh, you wanna do this next month?
No, I'm just saying, I mean, we're finding things now that are just a little hiccups.
We can, I mean, it's been a long time. I think I'm getting the sense of the board that the gist of this is fine. It's just these
Yeah.
little details. And I'm perfectly happy to table it till next month and get the little things fixed and then vote on it.
Is there
Next time.
anything pending that he would need it for?
I don't
between
think
now
so, and I think he has it now, and I think he can use it for what he wants. I don't think there's a lot of sewer construction going on at this time of the year anyway, so he just wanted to make sure that.
We could actually, don't we have a meeting before a meeting next week or?
Yeah, if we had it
we-
done, we could just vote on it real quick then
Yeah.
if you wanted to.
Yeah, let's do
That's actually Wednesday,
Yeah,
so.
like this too, whatever's going on with this sentence.
Let's just let
Page
Scott take a peek at it and get it back to us for Wednesday, just to get the bugs out of it.
That should be in, or it should be in instead of M. Prohibition of discharges that in the commissioner's authorized representative opinion would cause harm. So that one's an easy fix.
Your typical garbage grinder's 3/4 horsepower, you can get one up to 1.
See, and I don't know enough about my garbage grinders to know that it was a percentage of
Well, I think
horsepower.
that's
Well, it's
probably,
3/4 horsepower.
this is gonna be, garbage grinder approval, that's gonna be for a commercial one.
Yeah,
Like
well,
a
that'll be
restaurant or
more
something.
than,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
okay,
that's
so
what the-
more than
yeah.
3/4 or 1, you can get some that are 1 horsepower.
Okay, well, I'll ask Scott about that, and then we'll bring him back at either
Wednesday.
Wednesday, or if I don't have it done or I don't see him.
It's been sitting for 3 years.
Yeah,
Both of them too.
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I found it, yeah.
while it's fresh in his mind, and if he's there, and it shouldn't take but a quick,
Yeah,
quick
I don't know
look
whether it'll
over
be
it.
in tomorrow, but I'll see. If I can get it for Wednesday, I will. If not, we'll do it next month. But other than that, everybody is okay with things, and hopefully you get a little education and sewer verbiage and all that stuff that I've been dealing with for a long time.
Well, and thank you for the work you've done.
Yeah.
A lot of this was Scott, and
Yeah.
then just me kind of nudging him in the
thanks
right
to Scott.
direction. Okay, so we can exit as wastewater commissioners.
Move to exit as wastewater commissioners and enter back into select board.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, opposed. As we start liaison reports, we have in the packet the list of liaisons, including the ones that Tom had, and we need to sort of talk about how we want to cover those for the remainder of this select board year, which goes through June.
I'll take the library committee just because I'm already sort of so deeply involved in all that, so.
Okay. Midcoast Solid Waste Board of Directors, technically, we don't need 2 there because you're there, but if somebody else would like to grab that one, I can't.
How many more meetings? Are we meeting monthly, or are we gonna go to?
We're meeting monthly,
Monthly,
but I
yeah.
think it has not been uncommon in these last, as we're reviewing the redevelopment, meeting more times. And we set up little things here and there too, like we wanted to tour the Patriot Building that was right next door to potentially purchase that bit of property. There's different things that we've been kind of meeting to try to. There's also the subcommittees too. There's
Yeah.
finance.
Cardboard.
Cardboard, corrugated.
Yes.
So do either of you guys want to join that board, or?
I have an interest in it, but God, just,
Here's my pitch is maybe not now, but at some point very soon, one of you two gentlemen should come on. With the reason being, the trash is a relatively complicated area. And when some other folks are not here, to have there be some institutional knowledge about where we've been and hopefully where we're going will be good for the town. Because, I've been following the board since prior to being on this board.
Right. That's why I was
And
confused.
so the learning curve wasn't too steep for me as an actual board of
Yeah,
directors
you were
member.
going to meetings before
Yeah.
you were elected.
But it becomes complicated where your trash goes and what costs what and what's reimbursed from where and, yeah. Then there's
all right,
China.
I'll take that, but
We talk about China a
I'm
lot, Deb.
finished.
Well, and the nice thing about that board is we have 2 representatives. If
Yep.
one can't make it, the other representative can vote both representatives' votes.
Oh,
So vote
really?
the whole town share. So right now, with Owen going, he's voting the whole town share while he's there.
There's been times where
Oh,
John
man.
French has sat there and by himself commanded 42% of the vote.
Yep.
All right, I'll do that.
These are
Okay.
presents.
And let's see, what else have we got? So we got library committee.
Opera
taken care
House
of.
is the big
Capital
one.
Improvement Committee, I think we can probably hold on that one, because Mark, you're there, and we probably can do with only one there.
We don't have any meetings scheduled at the moment,
Right,
so.
and then the only other one is Opera House. Does anybody have an interest in the Opera House? I know they met today, because we all had a request to go, and I didn't go.
I would have gone, but I had plans.
I can try to take that up.
Okay.
I can try to take that up.
Okay, so that takes care of about everything then, I guess.
Who's the
The Northeast, yeah, okay. that's
Opera House
me,
Committee
yeah.
chair?
Sonny, I think it's Sonny Fogel.
She is,
Yeah.
she was voted today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, you're on that committee now.
I am.
And that reminds me of one other thing, is that I had a request, and I don't know whether they got my email in time for the meeting today or not, but there was a request that I got from both Sonny and from Terry about having members of that committee, and by extension, all advisory committees, participate in
Oh, that's-
meetings remotely. And because they have some people on that committee who travel a fair amount, but are very interested, and they wanted to know, what the deal would be for them participating remotely and counting toward a quorum and also voting remotely. Right now, we can't do that per state statute, I'm pretty sure. We can participate. Yeah, I know, it'll change with time, but right now, we can't vote if we're not here. We
What
can
about the
listen
quorum,
in.
though? The quorum question.
Well, again, that's, if there's a quorum and then you can't vote, then you might not have a quorum. So anyway, they asked that, and technically, those committees are our committees. We can make the rules for those committees, the advisory committee. We can't for the planning board, the zoning board, and stuff like that. We could for the advisory committees. But my thought was that, and I put this in an email to Sonny and to Terry, that I don't really like the idea of not having members of the committee present in general. Just because they are public meetings, and I posited the possibility of, well, what happens if the public shows up to a meeting and it's one person with 4 speakerphones in front of them? It doesn't really work very well for the public, I don't think. So, at any rate, the way I left it with the committee, and the rest of the board can weigh in if you like, was make us a proposal to amend your bylaws, and my suggestion was that I would, if it happened at all, I would want it to happen infrequently and on a very limited basis. So, for example, they could write something in, like if we're short of a quorum by 1 and somebody can call in, then we can get that person to call in and get the quorum, and that person can vote. But no more than 1 person could ever vote by phone. So in other words, if you've got, the committee's 5 and you got 2 there, and you can get 1 person to call in, okay, you got a quorum of 3, the meeting can go on. But if the other 2 call in, they can't vote. But that would be for the committee.
Are they
to look
being
at.
allowed input?
Yeah, you can, I mean, we've done that
They're on
before in
the
this board.
phone,
You
yeah.
can,
Yeah.
we can have conversation, you can have a conversation, but you're not allowed to vote if you're not here. So anyway, that's something, and I'll see what the committee comes up with, but I just wanted to float that out there to get everybody sort of thinking about it. Because like I say, my thought is I just don't want it to be a slippery slope where all of a sudden these meetings are happening by phone and they're not really public meetings anymore.
Does that mean if the screen goes black, our meeting's over?
Time to-
It may be a hint, I don't know.
Just, quickly, Doug's gonna take Midco Solid Waste, Owen's gonna try and pick up the Opera House.
Yep.
What was any others?
Doug was gonna pick up library committee.
Oh, Doug's
And we're gonna
doing-
leave the second
Boy, you're a
capital improvement
trooper.
committee vacant. Well, I took the ambulance review committee
Oh.
off his hands, so. I'll trade you.
One library committee for one ambulance committee.
Good job, Mark.
Hey, listen, I've got 7. I can't help it if they don't meet all the time.
So, on
One
to
of 'em-
liaison reports, the,
One of them's weekly.
the ORC is, the ORC is weekly too, but not the whole year. Anyway, ORC has pretty much wrapped up its season, and we'll be getting those land use ordinances to have for a public hearing soon. Fairly productive season for them. The last thing they're working on is updating the zoning map, which hasn't been done in a few years and needs to be done because the ordinances refer to it. So that was a fairly productive time. Ambulance review, did we meet? I'm trying to remember the last time we met. Was it?
It was in Hope,
Yeah, it was in Hope, but I can't remember whether it was
Half ago.
before our last meeting or.
no, I think it was after our last.
And basically, a lot of what the committee went through is what Rick talked about in his report.
Yeah.
The idea of going to a performance-based contract, which I think is helpful for the towns, because there was some fairly serious disagreement on the committee about the level of service that people wanted, and so that by going to this performance-based review, that solves that problem. It just says, we want, with, 90% or whatever the percentage is, we want to make sure that the calls are responded to properly.
In preparing that document, is there verbiage in there about how often the committee will meet, whether it's quarterly?
There was verbiage in our last contract that we were supposed to meet quarterly.
Well, see, I just want to make sure that even though it was there, it
Well,
never
and some of the,
happened.
and part of the contract will be that that whatever measures we decide on have to be reported. I think it was monthly, was what they were talking about. So in other words, they have to tell us that over a month, that, we responded to, whatever the number is, 15 calls that required a paramedic, and on all 15 calls, a paramedic was present. Or,
And I think I talked to Rick about that, about a method of reviewing that once a quarter or whatever by somebody confirming it with dispatch's information.
Right.
but that's,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Did anyone ever follow up with actually getting someone from Knox County Dispatch to be present at one of your meetings where this kind of performance-based evaluation would be discussed so that the county end could be there to answer questions about what it is that they can log within their system?
No, we didn't.
I just think that would be a beneficial thing at
I
some
mean, we
point in time
had,
if you
we
can.
had, Linwood came in here about a year ago when we sat in this room and talked about when they had some
But
issues.
that's not a bad idea, Owen. I'll,
But yeah, there was a lot of talk about how we need to measure these things very carefully.
And-
And we want the district manager, whatever they call them, station manager, to show up at these meetings, which he
So,
hasn't been so far.
and just because sometimes it is difficult to herd cats, if you could put in there, if it isn't already, indicating that every month on the second Monday of every month, or the Tuesday, if that's a holiday, that's when your meeting's gonna be, just so that way they know.
that was
Yeah,
one
well-
of the challenges, because it wasn't a regularly scheduled meeting.
Right.
And trying to get everybody together
Yeah.
and, well,
Yeah.
even some towns can't, they don't even have, Lincolnville doesn't even have members. David's the only
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, they don't,
I just say, I mean, that way, if everybody gets their agreement, they know, okay, for the next year.
that's a good,
we-
yeah, I think
we-
that's a good
You know,
thought.
that way they know what day it is, they
I
can pen
agree.
it in.
Yep.
Yeah, we have to, I mean, we were spoiled in the first year or so of that contract because it was going so well, and we sort of let off on and then they had management change. Anyway, you know the rest of the
Yep.
story, so. But those things they've all been talked about in the committee, and they're all gonna be part of the contract.
Going in a good direction.
I think so, yeah. And the other issue was with there will be monetary penalties if they don't meet the standards. And part of the other thing that we discovered through this whole process is that they were going down and answering a lot of calls for Vinyl Haven over the course of a year, where they fly somebody over, and then Northeast goes down and brings them up, and we approached Vinyl Haven and said, hey, you want to participate in this contract? And they basically said, why should we? We're getting it now for nothing.
You got a good deal.
So,
Yeah.
but at any rate, now they can.
We're gonna pay more?
But on the other hand, it did bring in revenue for Northeast Health, and so it helped them to balance their books a little bit. But now, with a performance-based contract, it doesn't matter. As long as they meet our performance, we don't care if they take their trucks down there.
Yeah.
We are probably gonna write some things in about the serial transport issue, I think, where they do a transport to Togus, and then they get over to Togus, and they say, oh, we got another transport, we need to go up to Presque Isle, and that truck's out of town for the better part of a day. So I think that will be addressed. So anyway, that's the gist of ambulance supervision. We have another meeting coming up sometime soon, I think.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was. Cemetery Committee met, and we had a productive meeting, much of which you heard about this evening. And we actually had another workshop meeting where we looked at the columbariums, and I know this is a tough budget year for that, but that's an investment that I think the town is going to need to make at some point soon. And the committee will be meeting again soon. And what we want to do is
28th. We're meeting on the 28th.
is come up with a plan, so, because these columbariums, you can buy them in, I think it's like 48 niches, or you can buy them in different quantities or whatever, but if we make a plan for the site where we can get one, and then when that one gets filled up, there'll be another spot for another one right in the same area, so it's a long-term plan for the viability of the cemetery, and where most people are doing the cremains thing. I think it will increase the usage of that.
I'm sorry, once you started talking multiple columbariums, you just blew my mind with like a Stonehenge style. style cemetery there in Seaview.
So that's it for my liaison reports. Anybody else?
Harbor Committee had no meeting this month. Planning Committee is running smoothly. They dealt with an issue with the Artisan Boat Shop last meeting. Let's see. The Investment Committee is a problem. We've not had a meeting since I was elected. I've been remiss in not pushing the issue, but I suppose it's time to bring it up. And, you know, again, never having been to a meeting, I'm not quite sure what the goal of the investment committee is. And if it hasn't met in 9 months, do we need an investment committee? You know, should I meet with Megan and talk about this a little and come back with a suggestion at our next meeting?
I would suggest that you'll find from Megan that she really values the investment committee, and often they don't,
Not that much.
Well, I've
She
sat
can't
in
get
on
them.
one of their meetings and I was thoroughly impressed, so I'm disappointed to hear that they're not. I thought that they did quarterly reviews, or they
Yeah,
did.
They just haven't been able to get a quorum.
It's been a year and a half, I think, or near.
And,
a
No,
year.
I
Yeah, they
haven't
were
that
really
Maybe-
impressive. They were.
Well,
Yeah.
They
Maybe
sounded
it's
good.
time
It's been a
to,
year.
maybe it's time to just get a whole new group of people that could make it to the
Did Bill
meetings and
Chapman
stuff.
sign up for that one? I can't remember.
I think he did. I think he's,
Because he would be good, but I would suggest that you go to Megan and say, hey, let's get the investment committee together soon.
she's
Well,
tried,
we've tried
she's been
that.
trying, yeah.
So, like I say, maybe it's time to think about get some fresh blood in there.
Could be.
People that
We'll
can
have to
make
see
it.
whose term is up.
Let me talk to Megan and I'll try to come back with a clearer picture.
Yeah.
I thought we only had conversations about basically an attendance, and if you can't meet certain attendance requirements.
It's in the bylaws of the individual committees, you know, I think, and so whether it's in the investment committee bylaws or not, I don't know off the top of my head, but we have had that conversation.
So when we
about-
get our act together and we have that kind of committee packet, I hope
How's
that.
that coming,
Yeah.
Ken?
Oh, I was looking at
That's the one thing that's fallen off the table. No,
you.
I was gonna do that. I've been
Right
remiss.
here.
That's the extra year you're gonna sign up for? Is that-
I'm
Well,
not sure about that yet. I don't
Sort
know.
of along those same lines, you also find here tonight the committee reports from Keep Rockport Beautiful. And you'll actually see on the January 30th one, we talked a little bit about effective communication between committees and town departments and everything. And so I have started using this form for Keep Rockport Beautiful. And if I was king instead of just selectman, I would ask that all of our advisory committees just do up a very brief report like this, and we have it included as part of our packet every month. So it's not onerous at all. You know, I suppose on the one way, you could say, well, the folks at home don't hear what's written down here, but on the other hand, this will be attached as part of our packet, so
But
it's
if it was
certainly
something-
available to the public.
If it was something that was regular and it was part of the packet, then it
Yep.
would be included in the,
Yes, and I got this, actually, it was too late to get to Diane for this packet, but
but it could be included in part, it could be there in the packet and in another location
yeah,
as well.
this is the form that's recommended by the state for advisory committees, just, I don't call it a minutes or anything like that, but it just basically identifies the committee, who's there, what you talked about, and if
Well,
there
you
are
could
any
put the,
recommendations.
you could put the
made.
template in, it'd be easy for people to grab, too.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like you to do with the Keep Rockport Beautiful is the people we've appointed, we haven't put term expirations.
Yes, I
Can you
know.
sort of sort that
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
And do we have anybody, who's actually on that committee? Because I thought we were gonna have a lot more people than we.
Well, you're right. Right now, Steve Smith, Maggie, myself, Richard Remsen, and Lori Smith wants to apply. She just talked to me about it today. And while we're doing this, let me ask the committee's opinion. We have 2 high school students who have been attending this, and they're part of it's going to be an official club at the high school called the Environmental Cleanup Club. And just like Fran tonight, these kids are remarkable, how interested they are in helping improve conditions around the town. They're interested in local government, learning how it functions. So it's just great to hear. So would it be possible, if this is a recognized club at the high school, which is located in Rockport, could we designate a member of the committee as being a representative from the environmental cleanup crew? I mean, how,
I mean, I would think more along the lines of liaison, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with having one of their members even be a voting member. We don't have any age restrictions on our committee.
The only
membership.
issue is that what we've done, and we've done this with some other committees in the past, for example, the Recreation Committee had somebody from Midcoast Recreation or somebody from the hospital. We typically appoint them to the committee and they get a 3-year term, which for a high school student
Yeah,
is
right.
a big chunk of their lives, and they're
Yeah.
not around for the whole time, so.
Yeah.
So that would be, but I think,
That and ensuring that the majority of your people are from Rockport. I think that was one of the things.
well, I think,
Didn't we talk about that?
I mean, we
Karen?
have, yeah, I mean, we have non-residents on other advisory committees, and we
But
can.
it has to be with the approval of the board, though. And
Yeah,
the-
they would have to apply for membership on the committee, and then we would
majority of
approve
the-
them or whatever. And my sort of unwritten rule is that I've wanted a majority of the committee to be Rockport residents.
Yep.
well, I'm saying,
But-
so could we just, could I fill out an application for committee membership and just say environmental cleanup crew representative and, sort of explain
have
the
somebody
I'm in
there.
favor
rationale?
of it because those two gentlemen that were there
Oh, my
were
God, yeah.
They were really
phenomenal.
sharp.
Well, it's like Fran, it's exciting to see
Why don't
kids
you
that
maybe
interested.
start as a liaison position?
Yeah.
But if you can make it make sense to where maybe it's just a 1-year position, because then that
Right.
you'll have the student for the
Yeah,
duration of
flesh
that
it out a
year.
little bit. The only concern I have is with those, if you have a slot that's designated for that one committee and then somebody different shows up every time, it becomes less effective.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I think in general, yeah, I mean, these kids are willing to do the work and willing to participate, we ought to encourage it.
Yeah. Okay.
Me? Okay, so here's the text I had sent to Rick from the meeting that you weren't there. So yeah, single sort, ask the select board if they approve that decision. So, single sort had made all kinds of sense up until just very recently with the single stream market tip fee going up drastically high. However, we still believe that single sort is still the right place to go.
Single
And-
stream
Single
recycling,
stream, right, and that we can't dictate the future of that based on what the commodities market is at this moment in time. So what should I carry back to the Midcoast Solid Waste Board of Directors about URLs? I'm happy to talk at length about it and kind of some of the conversations that we've had. Not everyone came on board in the beginning. As we've gone through the redevelopment process and brought in Woodard and Kern to go over and review and pitch some different ideas. As we went over that, we interviewed with a lot of different engineering firms and asked them all the same thing. Would you go to single stream or not? And every one of them said yes, which kind of validated some of the things that we'd been thinking. And then we kind of finally made that decision as a board. However, we can't do it without the various select boards.
I mean, my understanding of it over the years has been that single sort increases participation in recycling, but you lose some in the sorting process. You don't get as pure a stream of the recycling. So there's a little bit of a trade-off, but I guess for us, if we get a higher recycling rate out of it, that's probably a good thing, and the technology will improve with the sorting with time, I'm sure.
And here's the thing, as long as the tip fee for single sort materials is less than the tip fee for our solid waste,
Yeah.
then it makes sense. It's only if that single sort goes above. And it's not there yet, however.
Close.
One thing that was very interesting at our last meeting was it was the first time since I'd been on, it's the first time in anyone's memory that within the time between one meeting and another meeting, the tip fees changed. They changed in the middle of the month, and that was a reaction to China and some other pressures on the markets. So that was a new advent for us, that we're looking at these tip fees fluctuating pretty frequently. But we still think that the determination for, one, the redevelopment.
I thought it was a mistake. I thought when I saw those numbers, I thought, that's,
And I was like, wait a second, we just did this.
I thought it was a mistake.
He said it was the first time in EcoMaine history that EcoMaine has changed a tip fee in the middle of the month. Does anyone have any concerns, thoughts, questions on that? Because I am going to bring it back to the,
I think where the world is going in that direction. I mean, personally, I like sorting my stuff because I feel like it gets better use that way. But, you know, that's the way it's going, and as long as the technology is improving, I mean, the reality, if the tip fee goes up, if the tip fee gets higher and higher, then it costs just as much to put it in the yellow bag, except you gotta buy the yellow bag. I assume we won't have to buy a bag for the recyclables, or will we?
correct. No, the only conversation we had had about the blue bag for
Yeah.
single stream was potentially for after-hours deposit. However, that would have to be an after-hours deposit for both solid waste and recyclables, and we're not there yet. But we have had a conversation about bags, but it was only for like after-hours dumping.
I'm looking forward to learning all about it.
You want these? Also, we have had some just, Rick, I'm allowed to talk about the Patriot Building and the fact that we're just exploring it. We've had those discussions in our.
Public meeting, yep.
Yep. So, the Patriot Building, it's a little hard to describe, but as you're leaving the Solid Waste Corporation, you've just deposited your yellow bags in the hopper and you're making your way around, and the swap shop is off to your left. Immediately off to your right is this metal siding, concrete slab, small footer building. It's got a couple add-ons, additions onto it. That portion of property, that building and the land around it, is potentially for sale. Now, I'll say this, I hope that this amount of buying stuff is uncommon, and that the amount of stuff that we've bonded out, just as I've been on this select board, and I don't mean this town specifically, but the schools and now, you know, libraries and more schools and tech schools and now the Solid Waste Corporation, it's a goal of mine to try to keep it within certain financial constraints. When they proposed this Patriot Building, I wasn't very inclined. However, the plan that we'd been working towards did involve a rather large, potentially, a new construction building. If we were to purchase this Patriot property, one, we would get more property with more potential over time, and two, we would have a standing metal building that was in fair to good condition, that we would not have to purchase and build a new building, and that building would come with some potential. So it's something that we're exploring. I just wanted to bring that up.
Is it this one here? The arrow?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, and then the cool thing is they actually have a weird right-of-way. For half a second, I thought, oh, what a pain. However, the Solid Waste Corporation borders that property, so we could put the road in or a driveway in any place that we wanted.
There was some issues with the exit, you know, the exit from the property, and it would help potentially give us a little bit more room to design a better exit.
I don't actually see that because that building's property doesn't go all the way to the street.
But it would allow for anytime property comes up for sale next to a piece of municipal property, we should look long and hard at it.
And I'm not going to attempt to locate it on that map, but there is a bit of property that the Solid Waste Corporation owns kind of on the backside near Lily Pond development that we may sell for an additional buffer for that development and make some small revenue off to offset some of these new costs. It's an unnecessary
Thank
bit
you,
of
Jeff.
land for us to be holding on to. Another thing is that we talked about was the deconstruction of the middle school complex and the potential for reusing some of those materials. As long as they were processed properly, we could use those materials for our redevelopment purposes, meaning if the rebar was stripped out of the concrete foundation and ground up to a certain spec, we could use that spec material to raise an elevation up for